Okay, hello, you can all hear me? My voice is loud enough? Okay. My name is John, and this is my lovely assistant, Becky, who's going to be here to assist me. She's really just here to look cute. We are from the Kowiachobee Animal Preserve, which is out in Golden Gate Estates. Beautiful Golden Gate Estates off Everglades Boulevard. We've been here for almost 25 years. In fact, next year is our 25th anniversary. And we're rebuilding right now the original structure built on the property, our old barn, our old horse barn, which has been falling apart after 20 hurricanes and 3 direct hits. Been a long time, so learned a lot over the years. What Kowiachobee is, let's start with the name. Kowiachobee is from the Seminole tribe of Florida. Seminoles have a different language, and in their language it kind of roughly translates to the big screaming cat, which is basically the word they use to describe the Florida Panther. So that's the relevance of the name. We were established in 2001 as an educational facility. So if you look up our 501c3 with the federal government, it is listed as an educational facility. So what we really do is we teach children, school children and lots of bigger kids and middle-sized kids about conservation, sustainability, and obviously animals. So I mean about the age range, even though we focus most of our education on elementary age children, through schools, libraries, as well as programs like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Boys and Girls Club. We do a lot of programs. Well, to put it short, we build programs around other programs. We customize. So whatever the Girl Scouts needs, we provide. Whatever the Boys and Girls Club need, we provide. And all the way up to the college level. We have internships for college students. I've had several vet students there, biology students, animal behavioral students there. In fact, I even had a couple of them sitting on my board for a certain amount of time as well, so they give back as well. Right, kids, some that have traveled abroad to get their master's in continued education. So it's not exclusive to the younger ones. We also participate in programs like Bright Future Scholarship, and a lot of the education also requires kids to do community service hours, so being a nonprofit, we're able to provide for that as well. Beyond the education, there's also therapy. We do a lot of work with the elderly as well as special needs children like autistic, blind children. Worked and done programs with the Lighthouse of Naples and others. We also participate in community events. We've done things on Fifth Avenue with some of the events they had up there. Pets on Third we supported for several years. What else? Junior diabetes. I've done lots of programs with the Sheriff's Department with their community outreaches, including a couple of summer tours for the Ranger program that they had. So for one summer we bounced all over Collier County every weekend, doing everything from North Naples all the way down to Everglades City. So with the Sheriff's Department with their outreach programs. The work is extensive and not exclusive to any one type of thing. We don't fit in any little mold. We kind of just overlapped all of them. So when I think about people that want to support us, we're not just animals. We do not just children, college students, and other things we support. We've done fundraising events for battered women and children and those things as well. So it is very, we try to support the community as well. But the education is all centered on sustainability and protecting the environment and things like that, and that's how we protect the animals. The moniker that we kind of use now is conservation and sustainability through partnerships and participation. And what does this mean? That means conservation and sustainability is a problem we all created, so we all play a part in the solution. And how do we do that? By participating and building partnerships with people that are like-minded in that area. An example would be, last year I did an event with a packaging company that works with a lot of different packaging companies, and they all are green packaging companies that deal with recycling and new innovative ways to not only continue to do business with, because we all like to do business and make money, but do it in a way we're not harming the environment and we're making the most of our resources. I don't fit the mold of what I do because a lot of times people are very activist this way or activist that way. I believe in proper management and innovation and partnerships and participation and just trying to do things without having a huge impact on the environment. And there is a way to do that. Let's face it, we like to live the way we live, right? Doesn't make sense to complain about strip mining if we're going to carry a cell phone. So it's just kind of like, we like what we like, but we don't have to do as much damage as we do. We can find innovative ways to do it. So that's kind of the message I approach everything from. So on my shoulder here is Sydney. Sydney might or may not say hello, but usually she sings if I kiss her. Sydney is a Moluccan cockatoo. Moluccan cockatoo comes from the Moluccan Islands. Where are the Moluccan Islands? They are in the Moluccan Sea. Where is that? It's that string of islands south of Indonesia that kind of separates the Indian Ocean from the Pacific Ocean and goes all the way down to New Zealand. So that's where they come from. That's where most of the white cockatoos come from. And what I'm going to do right now is do a quick presentation. I always say the best way to get a good idea of what we do is to give you a little sample of what we do and how we teach. So cockatoos, we don't just teach what they are, where they come from, what type of animal they are. These are herbivorous. They eat mostly seeds and fruits and vegetables. And they love for you to cook for them. You know, they like vegetables, like a can of, what is that, mixed vegetables. They got a little bit of carrot, corn, beans, and everything in it, but they like you to cook it for them too. So, not big talkers. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. They're big talkers, but they don't have a very good vocabulary. And most of the time, you can't understand what they're saying. Which is why I say they're better mimickers than they are talkers, because most of the time they're just making fun of the way you speak. If you remember when you were a kid and there was a kid that spoke another language, where I had, that's what they're doing. They're mimicking the way you talk, not necessarily repeating the words that you say. So we go through a lot of different things with animals, and one of the things we always touch on is whether or not it's a good pet. Birds in general are not good pets. And the reason they're not good pets is because they have very high intellect. They are not at the level of a cat or a dog. They are not good at entertaining themselves. They need a relationship. So, if you're thinking about getting a bird as a pet, I advise against it. If you're thinking about getting a companion that you would like to have as a relationship, now you might be getting somewhere. Their intellect is so high that they need a lot of attention. They need to spend more time out of their cage than in their cage. In fact, Sydney only spends the night in her cage, but she don't care because she's sleeping. I just put her to bed. But in the morning she's up, she wants out, so she spends all day out. And no, I don't even clip her wings. She doesn't fly away. She doesn't really want to go anywhere. So, even though cockatoos have wonderful personalities, and even though they just love to be around people, they want to kiss, they want to cuddle. I mean, in a lot of ways, they're more like having a lap dog because they love to cuddle, they love to just be caressed, kiss, and ruffle. We like to just back massages under the feather. Yes, I know, you just like it, don't you? Yeah. So, however, if they don't get this kind of treatment, they start to resent you. Okay? But you're like this so high, they do build resentment for being ignored or left in their cage all day. And what eventually happens is they lash out and attack their owners. This is why cockatoos are the #1 rescued bird in captivity, because they finally snap and attack their owners, and most of the time it requires plastic surgery because they go right for the face. This is one of the things that I warn people about. Relationship, not a pet, needs a lot of attention. A lot of times I'm talking to younger crowds so they don't understand it, but you guys are pretty close to my age, so if you want to know what happens when you ignore a cockatoo, eventually what you get is what you see when you watch the movie Fatal Attraction. So that would be the warning. If you haven't seen that movie, watch it, and that's what you're going to get if you ignore your cockatoo for several years. Now the young ones are very, very playful. It takes years to get there, but once it does, it snaps, and then you don't want it. On the other hand, if they get the attention, it's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This one's even great with kids. I've gone poolside with a group of kids, 2 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old. They'll pass her around for 3 hours. Pretty good if you can tolerate that. And I would say it's just because he's very well adjusted and gets a lot of attention from volunteers that are there all the time. So it's not just exclusive to one. I know a lot of people say one person bird, one person bird. My opinion is that a lot of times that is because they're only exposed to one person. They pick their favorite, usually one giving them most of the attention. But in my case, I do have some birds that prefer some over others. A lot of times it's chauvinistic, and then the other times it's the opposite. A lot of birds do choose gender based on their gender. She's a female, so she loves almost every man. She's an exception to the rule of who she'll get along with. But just like people, everybody has their own individual tastes and desires and personalities. So we all have our hang-ups, and with an animal that has such high intellect, you're going to have a lot of them that have the same type of hang-ups. So I wouldn't judge one type of bird or one bird against another bird, because I've seen some that are notoriously bad as a breed, but you find that one that's just the one. Okay, so the idea here is find out what you're getting into ahead of time. You know, I think the biggest problem in the animal industry, especially when it comes to pets, is spontaneous buying. You're in the vet store, you see something wonderfully beautiful, cool, feathery, fluffy, beautiful, and you want it. But we very rarely think about what is going to come after that. So a little bit of research. I always tell the kids, I said, you know, your grandparents, your parents, they might have an excuse. You know, you actually had to go to the library to find out about things. Well, we're all carrying computers in the palm of our hand today. It's one quick Google, Yahoo, or Bing search away. There's no excuse for making the mistakes that we used to make when it's so easy. I always tell kids, we had things like Google, Wikipedia, and cell phones when I was a teen, because I just didn't like going to the library. But when all that information is at your fingertips, you don't have to. So yeah, every type of animal we get, we recommend the goods and bads and the little things. I'm going to give Sydney to Becky right now, by the way. There you go. Yeah, if you get bored of her, just put her on the table, she'll run around and be adorable. Are you ready? Come on. This is one of my favorite things to do. Whenever I have a group of kids, they go, guess what this is? This is Fergie. Fergie is a male skunk. Oh, thank you. This is a male skunk. He's a black and white one. We do have another one that is a female. Her name is Flower. Oh. And Flower is what we call a okay, let go of my necklace. Flower is what we call a lavender skunk, and the lavender coloration is basically a very light brown with a lavender tint to it. She's absolutely gorgeous. So what does this mean? That skunks do come in different colors, but most of them are created. So when I'm talking about genetics, and we talk to college students about how different colors are manipulated for captive animals in the pet industry, the processes that they use. So in the wild, the black and white skunk is what we mostly see. However, there's a certain percentage of them that are born brown. They have brown here, brown with the white stripe instead of the black. But then we also have the albino. The albino is white or cream colored with pink eyes. So what happens is, because we know everything is genetic and all the characteristics of animals that describe them are genetic, we figured that we can mix them just like we mix paint. So we try to manipulate these rarer colorations in order to create more of them, or even different colorations. In the pet industry, it has become big business. So we create all different kinds of colored skunks and raccoons, because what's better than having a pet skunk? A pet skunk that's a different color. It's not a new thing either. Remember Wizard of Oz, the horse of a different color. Everybody wanted a different color. Okay, so what we do have to point out, though, is a lot of times when we play with genetics and take shortcuts, we also create defects, or we create damage. Why? Because when you're manipulating recessive genes, you're trying to make a recessive gene more common. And how do you do that? You interbreed, or you breed too close of bloodlines. This is what happened with the white tigers. By doing this, you can manipulate the colorations, but inbreeding is inbreeding. You're not supposed to marry your sister and cousin, and because it does a lot of physical damages. And it does with the animals as well. A lot of people are down on purebred dogs. The reason they are down on purebred dogs is because it's a genetic issue that was created from the beginning. To create a breed of dogs, you have to have a proven bloodline. It starts with a very, very small pool. Creating the breed is possible, and their hope is we'll undo it, be damaged by creating a large number. To register a breed, you have to have something like 900 individuals, but those 900 individuals started with 2 or 3 or 4, so you have a genetic pool. That's why all the different dog breeds have stigmas. But some of them are not as bad as others. Some are biters, some are this, some are that. One of the heartbreaking ones is the Cocker Spaniel. Wonderful, beautiful, playful dog. Low tolerance. Why? Well, his brain is just a little bit larger than the skull cavity is comfortably allowing. Okay, so they're walking around with a constant headache all day long. So as a parent, you might be able to relate to that. Slight headache all day long, kids come home from school and you snap. Okay? Well, this is something that was created through that process. They have a slight headache and then pushed over the edge very easily. So things can be very, very sad. This is not to get everybody that loves purebred dogs upset at me. It's just that's the process that's used, and a lot of times it does a lot of damage to the animals. So we do it with dogs. Look at the history of the white tiger. I have a white tiger at the preserve, and we use that opportunity to talk about the recessive gene in the white tiger. The white tiger is very rare in the wild, only happened in 2 places in the world. The first was in the Bengal population, only in the country of India. 1 out of 10,000 babies was a white one. Very rare. The only other place they were found in the wild was Siberia. Siberian tigers, 1 out of 75,000 is even more. So the question I always pose to people is, how do we have so many in captivity? The first 2 white tigers came to the United States in 1946. They were a gift from India to the Smithsonian Zoo in Washington. So how did we get all these white tigers? We manipulated the recessive gene. We bred brothers, sisters, cousins for several years. So we did this through the latter part of the 40s, the 50s, and 60s. By the time the 70s came along, you guys might have remember going to the zoo. Every tiger had cross eyes. Many of them had hip displacement. A lot of them had very, very terrible facial disfiguration, similar to what you would find in Down syndrome, very severe cases. Okay? So this is a very true story. It's also an old story, because where did I just end it? It's in the 70s, right? So the 70s, we woke up, and some of the biologists, zoologists in the zoo system said, you know, let's fix this, let's stop doing this, let's undo what we did. So what happened in the 70s, the mid-70s, is we started breeding for diversity. Nobody bred a white tiger with a white tiger. Again, they only bred them with orange ones. However, we did find a few orange ones that carried the white gene, so we were still creating white tigers, but they were healthier because we added diversity. So, through the latter part of the 70s, through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s, we were breeding for diversity. Today's white tiger is nowhere near the best it was in the 70s. This is good news, okay? The reason I bring this up to a lot of people is because what we are told is what happened before and why the white tigers shouldn't exist, why they're mongrels, why they're man-made, why we should not have them, they shouldn't exist, and everybody's down on the white tigers. I want to point out that we've been breeding for diversity much longer than we were ever breeding for coloration. Today's white tiger doesn't have cross eyes anymore. The idea that the animal rights activists would love you to believe is that because they were inbred and because they did have a lot of damage, they're no longer viable for conservation, and we shouldn't have them at all because they really don't serve any purpose. That makes a lot of sense if you think about what happened, but when you look at the scientific evidence that and the testing that was done by geneticists, they'll tell you a different story. So I'm just not expecting you to believe that we fixed them. I'm asking you to believe the scientists. I do have a white tiger, but that doesn't make me an expert or a scientist. But a scientist named Brian Davis out of Texas A&M University, you put aside your sports bias, it is a credible college. So, been testing captive tiger DNA for over almost 30 years now. Okay, read his research and learn the truth. You shouldn't be down on the white tigers. They can serve a purpose for conservation. In a lot of cases, more genetically diverse than their wild counterparts. Okay? So I'm not expecting you to believe me. I resource everything, even with kids, I back up all my information with where I got it. I don't expect anybody to believe me. So, but that is just another example of how we can do damage to animals. When I have kids, I bring these similar animals out. We do cover a lot of things about the difference between native and exotic animals that belong here, animals that we don't belong here. The hooded skunk is the most common of 12 different types of skunks. There are 12 varieties of skunks. This is the most common, found all over North, South, and Central America. But out of the 12 different ones, they are kind of regional, including here in Florida. Our skunk happens to be like spotted color, and they're very tiny. But this is the widest range and the most common. Why do they call it a hooded skunk? Because he has a hood over the top of his head that turns into a skunk. So it is the most common. Even though a lot of people think they're related to weasels and ferrets, even though they look similar, they are classified in their own family. And this one doesn't spread. He has been descented, simple little sacks to be taken out when they're young. When they are babies, it's done by breeders in the pet industry, not taken out of the wild. They are bred for this purpose. When they are babies, it's a procedure, similar to circumcision. It's a snip and then you're done. However, when it's older, it's surgery, and most of them don't make it. And most vets don't want to do it because who would want to do that in their office and smell it out for months? So, if you choose to get a skunk as a pet, I recommend getting it from a breeder who takes care of all that mess for you ahead of time so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to be nervous about the surgery. It's already taken care of. So let's again go to, does it make a good pet? You know what I tell people is there's no such thing as a bad pet, really. It's only bad owners, okay? So we just have to know what we're getting into. Truth is, they are lovable, they're cuddly, they're sweet, they're very, very, actually they can be clingy, affectionate to almost annoying proportions. You could be walking around the house and they'll be walking between your feet. They're better than cats in that aspect because they're friendlier. Cats are arrogant. I mean, let's face it, they want you when they want you, but if they don't want you, get out of their way. These guys are very cleanly. I know this for a fact because I've done it. They will sit in your lap for an entire Super Bowl and only get upset if you get up to go to the bathroom at halftime. So no, they are wonderful. Also, they are nocturnal. Nocturnal means they're up all night. So your feeding schedule has to be a little different because if you feed them in the morning, they're going to go to sleep and it's going to sit on their stomach and they're going to gain weight. So feeding them at night is probably a better idea. Also because they are an omnivore and they eat a little bit of everything, fruits and vegetables, also a little dairy, but that means they also like bugs. They love bugs a lot. One of their favorites is the palmetto bug, that big cockroach looking thing that we all hate. So having a pet skunk in the house means you'll have less than them because that's like their chocolate, they're easy. All right, so what is the wonderful thing about having a pet skunk running around your house at night? He's eating the bugs that come out at night when you're sleeping. In fact, they say statistically we all eat spiders, 8 spiders a year in our sleep without even knowing it. Imagine how they could cut down on it. So yes, they can make wonderful pets. But again, your pet is only as good as you are an owner, okay? You can't expect this to be a wonderfully cuddly thing unless you're wonderfully cuddling it every day. What I find is that just like people, we are used to what we're used to, and if we're not used to it, we're a little bit hesitant, scared, and nervous, okay? So if you hold your skunk every day and cuddle it, it's going to be friendly. But if you only pick it up once every other week, it's going to be nervous. You got a question?
So how big are they? What does he weigh?
Well, it depends on the type they are.
Right.
So it's like the ones we have here in Florida, tiny. They're like a quarter of this size. This is the average size of your domestic, for a pet skunk. In the wild, they'd be a little skinnier. Unfortunately, when we have pets as people, we all our inner Sicilian comes out and needs to be done. I happen to be married to a Sicilian, so everything has to eat well and be a little meat on them.
How long do they live? How long do they live?
Oh, it depends on a lot of different things. I mean, health, genetics, just like with people. The average, I would say, would probably be around 12 to 14 years.
Wow.
I am going to make this statement as well. When it comes to pets, when it comes to animals that are captive, being well cared for and maintained, animals live 2, 3, and 4 times as long as their wild counterparts. In the wild, a skunk only lives 3 or 4 years. As a pet, 12, 14. I knew somebody had one that lived at 20. Okay, same with raccoons. 4 or 5 years in the wild, 20 in captivity. Lions and tigers, 7 to 10 in the wild, 20, sometimes 30 in captivity. It's not a big mystery either. What makes something live longer? Quality of life. Why are we all living long? 100 years ago, you'd be lucky to live to 50. That's because of quality of life. Life is easier, better medical care. We can cure things that we didn't used to. Yeah, there are a lot of people that don't make it. There are genetic things, all kinds of things, stupid things we do ourselves that shorten our lives, but let's face it, as a society, we're starting to live longer because of quality of life. It's just easier than it used to be. So why wouldn't it be different for animals? You think about what the wild really is. It's unforgiving, it's competitive, it's dangerous. You're either hunting or being hunted, or you are battling for food. There's danger around every turn. And guess what? If you get injured, there's no medical care, there's no doctors. I have run across a lot of unusual statements. I had one lady come to me one time and say, you know, humans are the only ones that hunt for sport. And I'm like, you never had a house cat? Yeah, it is. We romanticize the wild. It is what it is. It's harsh. It is a really hard existence. I think what's sad is having animals in that setting and not giving them the attention that makes their life a little more fulfilling at the same time. So I do teach a lot of psychology. I'm not going to get into that as much. I'm going to try to get good. I'm going to let you hold this gun because she's nice and fluffy. She'll snuggle you.
How long is that for?
I'm going to put her over here for a moment. We'll run around.
Over there.
I put it over there. Oh. Trying to make sure that I grab the bottom of the head. All right. This is Ash. I'm just going to mark this. I bet I have that all down my back. She does that to me. So this is Ash. Ash is a ball python. So, again, exotics. I used to have a pretty good, actually the last time I was here, we did a whole thing on Burmese pythons and the problem in the Everglades. So a big part of our education has always been on invasive species, animals that are kept as pets, but like go into the environment but also disrupt the environment because of competition that didn't used to be there, but also predators that are not there to maintain the balance. Burmese python became a very, very big problem that we might not ever solve. But it doesn't end there. About 2 years ago, FWC banned 5 reptiles in the state of Florida. They banned the Burmese python, the reticulated python, the yellow anaconda, and 2 lizards, the green iguana, and the tegu. So I think tegu, I had a tegu, I always had an iguana, we had a few snakes, and this is what our purpose for having them was to teach about the problems that we were having, and the problem, and why it was a problem. The beginning with the problem is irresponsible pet ownership. People not knowing what to do with an animal, so just letting it go seemed to be the answer. We can blame certain amounts of things on the storms. If you know enough stories, you know that even the people that govern it were part of the problem in doing their job and just not talking about it. Whatever the case, it is a problem, and it's a problem we might not ever get rid of. Unfortunately, we also try to solve problems by creating another problem with the solution to the problem. By letting things go that eat other things, but then they end up taking over as well. From Illinois, Lake Michigan, zebra mussel, if you know about that, that is a problem-solving problem. So, when we talk about pet ownership of exotic animals, the responsibility goes with it. Don't let it get away, don't let it go. See, the problem is when people see things that they know are going to get big, they just think it's going to be cool. Wouldn't it be cool to have a snake in my house that's 20 feet long and I can feed and just show up? Wouldn't it be good to have a tortoise that gets to be about 300 pounds and I can ride it and it's wonderful? You know, these things are wonderful until you have to buy a chicken every day to feed it. It becomes a little expensive. Or it might become a little aggressive during feeding time. Well, you don't want to kill it, it's your pet, but you let it go instead. A lot of people have in the back of their mind, when it gets big, I'll just give it to the zoo because it's going to be cool. The zoos already have enough, they don't want them. So they're always going to say no because they also don't take in people's pets, they get their own. So we, again, have to make better decisions. We can't be, this is cool and I'm going to get it. Salcata tortoises. Salcata tortoises are endangered in Africa. There's more backyards in Florida than there are in the continent of Africa. Salcata tortoise can get between 250 and 300 pounds. When you get them at the pet store, they're about the size of a silver dollar. But we know they're going to get big and we think it's going to be cool. When they get to be about 50 to 100 pounds, they become little tanks and they will destroy anything you put them with and they will escape and they will get out into the environment. Now, there have not been any proven effects, negative effects yet, but, you know, what if? They can't compete with the already endangered gopher tortoise or territorial. Even tortoises get very territorial and aggressive. And if you outweigh them by 100, 150 pounds, guess who's going to win? So these are the things we don't think about. So we tell people, really, you need to do the research, you need to make good decisions. So when it comes to good pet, bad pet, it's not a good idea to have a snake that gets 12, 15, 100 feet. When a child asks for a snake, because snakes are cool, they're fun, people love to have them. Ball pythons are wonderful. They're probably the most docile snake you will ever get. We call them ball pythons because they just roll up into the ball most of the time. And they don't get very big. The males they top out at about 3.5 feet. The females get about double the size. They can be 6 feet, but they're not going to get any bigger. They're not going to get bigger than you. So, good pet, docile pet, not a lot of escapes. It's not going to get so big that you're going to let it go because it can't be handled anymore. So that's what I mean by good decision. Your kid can have a snake. This is more docile than anything you're going to catch in the backyard or in the state of Florida. They're wonderful. To prove this point, I'm going to give you a little more history about the ball python, which is its original name in Africa where it came from. They called them royal pythons. Why did they call them royal pythons? Because people wore them as jewelry. And if you wore them as jewelry, you were actually part of the royal family. We literally trained them to be bracelets, necklaces, and I think you might recall some of the hieroglyphic paintings and, you know, they're all wearing snakes. The royal python. They would train them to be jewelry. They were an accessory, and that would signify upper class royalty. So that's the name over there. So we call it a ball python because it rolls up in the ball. They call it a royal python, but the main idea is they're just that nice and docile and managed. So what do you think? Big snake that gets 20 feet and aggressive could hurt you really bad. Or the nice little snake that just kind of wears like a bracelet or a bag. So these are all the types of things we talk about. Now, even in the ball python genetics, you can get one like this. This is about a normal color. It's a little darker than most. As a baby, you can pick them up for about 35 bucks in the pet store or from a breeder. However, because we like to make different ones, they have all kinds of different patterns. We have albino ones. We have purple face albino ones. We have a Scooby-Doo python, one that has the shape of a Scooby-Doo face in his skin. Sold on the internet for 3,500 bucks. There are some ball pythons that have spider web patterns on them. They go for $4,000 or $5,000. $1,000. So this is a whole new industry. Well, what's better than having a ball python that everybody has, one that's a different color that almost nobody has. So now we have designer pets. Yeah, but again, damage is done to animals this way. Ferrets are another popular one. Ferrets in the pet store, a lot of different colors. The white ones with brown eyes that are not albinos, 80% of them are dead. And their owners don't even know it. You have a special needs animal that you have to make special compensations for it. These are the damages that are done to this type of thing. So, if you really care about a healthy pet, let's avoid the colors. So,
Do they bite?
huh?
Do they bite?
Does it bite? Anything can bite, including you. Anything can bite, including you. If it has a mouth, it can bite. Okay, that's why I was asking. Can it bite? Anything can bite that has a mouth, including you. My philosophy is most people get bit because they let something bite them. My volunteers say that. It bit me. What do I tell them? Why do you let it? That's what I say. And they go, how come you never get bit? Like, don't let them. I got a monkey bite on the back of my hand. You know what I had to do to get the monkey to bite me? I had to hold it in front of him for about 30 seconds. He looked at it, looked at me, he looked at it, he put his hands on it, looked at me, looked at it. After about 30 seconds, he finally took a bite. The only reason I did that was to show people, it's like, I literally had to hold my hand there that long for him to bite, okay? You see what happens is we get involved with, amazing and oh, it's so beautiful, and then we forget that it can bite and we end up getting bit. You know how most people get bit? 80% of the people, maybe even 90%. You know how they get bit? They do this. Yeah. See how there's nothing that'll take you off quicker than having a finger this close to your face. Why does everybody always go right to the face when you're holding something? Hey, the skunk, oh, let me touch his nose. That's the biting end. We kind of have to use that. We have to kind of calm down. We have to think about it, but realistically, most people get it. So the word I use is aggressive. Most animals are not aggressive. Most of the time, when they bite out of fear, nervousness, or annoyance. Okay. You got to realize that psychologically, if you're used to something, you're used to it. It's no big deal. If you're not used to it, you're nervous about it. Okay, so that's what I mean about having pets. If you spend time with it, it's just another day of love. But if it's in a cage most of the time and then you go to touch it, it's going to squirm, it's going to twist, it's going to snap wide because it's not used to it. Fear is always the motivating factor. Animals in the wild strike people because they're defending themselves, they're afraid. In captivity, you're not going to get any different behavior if they're still scared and nervous. Psychology is psychology. And when you're dealing with something that's intellect of a 2-year-old, you got to treat everything like it's a 2-year-old. You know, you got to make it comfortable. What else? Anybody got any questions about ball python?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have they escaped enough into the wild that we're finding them?
Yeah, these are not the ones. You know, again, most people let them go. And or they get away. There is not. This is why they have not banned these. Most people are trying to get rid of them because they don't get real big, and most of them are very nice. You know.
Beautiful.
I mean, I've played with corn snakes, ringnecks. This is probably the nicest, most manageable snake you could ever have.
What's his life expectancy?
One of the things people think is reptiles live for a long time. No, the lifespan is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30, 40 years. It varies so much from the different reptiles. There's actually only a couple of reptiles that live over 100 years. You know, alligators, crocodiles, and the Galapagos tortoise. The rest of them, there's only one lizard. It's one of the, in the family group of iguana that lives 99 years, but there aren't any others. So, but most reptiles that people have as pets, it's generally anywhere from 10 or 12, maybe 30, 40. Iguanas, the average lifespan is probably around 35. But there again, a lot of that information you can find on Wikipedia. So I never trust Google because Google just sends you to whoever, and it depends on who you get sent to, whether or not you're getting the right information. But Wikipedia is fact checked, so that's one of the better sources that I use. But yeah, if you're curious about how long something lives, look it up, and you will find that captive lives are generally longer. Any other questions? Reptiles?
We had a alligator in our lake behind us, and it didn't bother me, and it came up once in a while to sun itself, and unfortunately it scared our neighbor, and it was removed. And can you address that, because this may be happening to other
I had
people?
talked to somebody about doing a tour. I want to do a tour to all the golf course communities in this area.
Because
You
they're not-
basically go over that whole safety thing, okay? Maybe you guys could book this again. We do actually have a 10-foot alligator named Bubba who doesn't bite. He's actually world famous, the most famous alligator ever. Did shows with Steve Irwin back in the day. Was on Oprah twice, was on Jay Leno, was on Regis and Kelly or whatever. Bubba the alligator came from Chicago. He was basically a confiscated alligator raised by a gentleman named Jim Nessie. Jim Nessie raised Bubba. Bubba does not bite people. Bubba doesn't need tape on his mouth. Bubba will let a 10-year-old brush his teeth. Now, I want to make it very, very clear to people, Bubba is an exception, 1 in a million alligator. Not every alligator can even be trained to do that. Just like everybody and everything, personalities are there. However, Bubba is a lot different from what you see out in the pond out there. One of the things that Jim does teach is the difference between the alligator and crocodile. Crocodiles have a different shaped nose. It comes to more of a point like a triangle, where the alligator has a broad snout, which is more rounded. Alligators avoid people until they have a reason not to avoid. What makes alligators dangerous? Us.
Yes.
Us. Feeding alligators is the number one problem. To help you understand the psychology of this is the way I explain it to the children. Okay? Alligators have 80 teeth. They have 40 on the top, 40 on the bottom. They have more teeth on one jaw than you have in your entire mouth. However, not one of these teeth is meant for chewing. Alligators can't chew. They can only grab, rip, and tear. Grab, rip, and tear. That's what they're designed to do. So it's a lot of work. Now, anybody who's eaten a sandwich knows that you don't swallow the sandwich, you take a bite out of the sandwich and you chew it up into small pieces and then you swallow it. An alligator can't do that. It's a lot of work. Rip, tear, until it can fit down their throat, because everybody knows if it doesn't fit down your throat, you can't eat. So it's a lot of work. So what happens when you're out on the ninth hole and you're looking at a birdie? I always explain to the kids, a birdie is not a bird, it's an actual good score. So you're looking at a birdie, you're outside, and you don't want to finish your sandwich, so you throw it into the pond to the alligator. You know what happens to that alligator? Every person it sees from that point on is the equivalent to McDonald's. Not just any McDonald's, but McDonald's with free Happy Meals every day. I say it that way with kids because what gets a kid excited? McDonald's. The golden arches makes them get excited. Happy Meals, Happy Meals, Happy Meals. So that's what you do to wild animals. You take all the work out of it. Anybody know? What's easier, making your own sandwich or having your wife make it for you?
In my case, I like to make it myself.
I didn't ask you that. I said, what's easier? I get kids that say that to me. I get some kids that are really like, no, I don't want anybody touching my food. I make my own sandwich. But realistically, 9 times out of 10, a kid's going to say, yeah, Mom. You know. So, realistically, what we do when we feed wild animals is we take the work out of it. Okay? Would you rather slave over the stove every day? I'm probably asking the chef, but would you rather stay over to Phil and face the stove every day, or would you rather go out to eat every day?
Go out.
Okay. Why do we not go out to eat every day? It's expensive. What if you go out to eat wherever you wanted, any night you wanted, and didn't have to pay for it? Would you eat it? Would you cook? You know what I'm saying? That's psychological. It's psychology at a very basic level. All they know is free food, it's easy. Okay?
Another situation that I saw, we have beautiful tortoises here.
Yes.
And they are trying to cross the street to get to the water. And our cars here in Verona Walk are running right over them.
Yeah. And it's sad. Let me tell you about Africa. Africa's desert, right? Africa's desert keeps getting bigger and bigger. You know why it keeps getting bigger? Because there's less and less plants in the soil. Why? Because when it rains, there's a crust on the top. The plants can't get through it anymore. Also, there's no sulcata tortoises anymore. What does sulcata do to them? The definition of the word tortoise is land-based turtle, okay? So they don't go in the water, they go into the ground. So they churn up the soil and they make everything grow. See, when we talk about the balance of nature, we talk about everything playing its part. You don't have tortoises that dig in the ground, nothing's gonna grow. Then the animals that eat the grass are not gonna come because there's nothing growing there. You know how they are, say, turning the deserts around now? They're getting a whole bunch of sulcata tortoises from America and they're going back over there and letting them go back into the outskirts of the desert. And you know what they're doing? They're digging holes. And you know what's happening because they're digging up the holes? The seed can grow. And then what happens when things grow? The herbivores come back. The prey come back, and then the predators come back. We also seen this in Yellowstone. We've seen Yellowstone, you got rid of the wolves, then we have too many herbivores, they eat up all the grass, and then the rivers change, everything goes, things don't grow as well because there's nothing eating the deer. Reintroducing the wolves actually saved Yellowstone. That's the balance of nature. You know, we can't save one. We get scared by things like black bears. You know how many people get scared by black bears every year? Maybe one.
Yeah, we've had the black bears here too.
You know how many people get killed by deer every year? And I'm not talking about car accidents. I'm talking about just attacks on people by deer. There's like 12 to 14. We're afraid of the predator, but we're not afraid of the animals that could potentially hurt us just because they eat plants. So a lot of it's a psychological thing. You know, what we need is respect. Alligators not dangerous unless you change its behavior, so you don't change its behavior. You avoid them, you respect them. That's why we don't let captive animals into the wild. They're already used to eating from people. You're giving them the food. You let them out in the wild. If I took my tigers and my lion, put them back in Africa where they belong, what do you think would happen? The first time they get hungry, they go up to a person to get food. They wouldn't know. They'd shoot them. Behavior is learned. My kids don't, my lions and tigers don't know what the wild is. They've never been there. Mine act like house cats. Why? Because I raise them in a house and they get love, attention, care, respect just like my house cats. They're happy, well adjusted. Why would I let them out and just like I wouldn't drop my kid off somewhere and leave them to fend for themselves. You know, and again, I'm not approaching this from the right wrong, it's just the psychological end of it. You know, we are used to what we're used to. Don't change the animal's behavior. Wild animals are wild animals. If you think that an animal that's in the wild that is subject to ecotourism all the time, you know, you don't see that as a problem, people disrupting their natural behavior. We go home to our condo and the villages are in danger because they no longer fear people. And again, I'm not getting into the whole right and wrong thing, but if you think about the psychology of it, you can't sit up there and tell me that you're doing the right thing and then I'm doing the wrong thing. It's, again, psychology and the whole idea.
And also where you came from. I'm originally from Minnesota. Yeah. Seeing all this wild animals was just beautiful to me. Yeah. Because they didn't need anything, you know. They were out in the woods, they could do do whatever they wanted. I just thought it was beautiful. But people down here don't get it.
Yeah. This does not go over well with people in my business, okay? And a lot of people's jaws drop when I say, I am an advocate of golf courses. I think they're wonderful. I don't even play golf. I've played it before, don't trust me. I did not enjoy it, but
Young listener.
yeah. But the reason I'm an advocate of golf courses is because I believe that they can play a big part in conservation, okay? And the reason for this is we just have to teach people living on a golf course to share and respect the wildlife around them, okay? And this takes education. Why did I choose education over rescue? Rescue is just another piece of the problem. Unless you teach people not to make the mistakes that cause a rescue, you're always going to have rescues. How do you get rid of rescues? You teach people to change their behavior so they become unnecessary. This is the way I describe it to people. Golf course, what chases out the animals? Dynamite to build the lakes, heavy equipment, construction, lots and lots of noise. What happens when it's done? It's quiet. In fact, if you make noise, you get kicked out. We have a noise ordinance. But we also have something that resembles a forest. There's trees everywhere, there's nice little ponds, the animals will come back. Just share it with them and respect their boundaries and see them as boundaries, okay? Yeah, we can say, oh, we chased them off their land. Well, if you let them back and respect them and let them live there with you, you know what's bad? I tell you, the most annoying phone call I ever got from somebody was they called me to ask me what to do about a fox that built a den in their backyard, and he was concerned about his landscaping. He says, what do I do? I said, well, you got two choices. You could either call FWC, protect your yard, and have it removed. Or you could appreciate the fact that you chose your yard instead of the neighbor's yard and just enjoy it. If it was me, I'd be selling tickets to the neighbors. You want to see the fox in my backyard? What I'm saying is you just change your thinking about it. Enjoy it. Building it then. Maybe you'll have babies, as soon as it has babies, those tickets are going from $5 to $10, even 20. You know what I'm saying? You got to look at the bright side of everything. Sharing with the animals, respecting the animals. What we don't want to do is change their behavior. Feeding the bears is not good. There is a movement out there. A good person to follow is Bobby Lee Davenport, who's been leading the charge against the bear hunt that they've been talking about, but also lobbying the waste management to come up with bear-proof containers. They make them. She asked where she could get one. She was looking for one. Waste management told her, even if you buy one, we won't pick it up because it doesn't fit our system. You have to realize that we are the consumer, we control everything. Okay? It's whether or not we want to tolerate it or not, Most of us just get comfortable and the people that scream loudest are usually the wrong people, and then they scream loud and just infringe on the rest of our rights, Why should we go after it? Not just for ourselves, but for the animals. Do we want to solve the bear problem, or do we just want to kill all the bears? Those are the kind of things that we have to kind of think. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but I don't try to take sides or take an agenda. What I really try to do is get people to think. Okay? Something that's lost. I had a college professor intern for me one year out of FGCU. She was actually going to school and teaching at the same time, and she was trying to find projects, and she's like, critical thinking, it's gone. Can you help me? We got to figure out how can we get people to think critically anymore. And that's kind of like, we've just kind of gotten that automatic thing, and everything's fed to us. We just need to think a little through with the animals. So that's kind of what I'm always trying to do, is just get people to think about more answers and different answers and less about what we want to say is right or wrong. We can view golf courses as a problem, or we can view them as a blessing. And here it is. One of the most awesome pets that a kid can ever have. This is a bearded dragon. His name is Zoran. Why do they call it bearded dragon? So a lot of people think it's because there's slimy things on them. No, it's actually because their chin changes colors when they get excited. It either turns black or red. I think this might be a red one. But when they get excited or happy, their chin turns, and they look like they have a 5 o'clock shadow. Why are these such good pets? Because they're very interactive, very social, love to be handled, love to play. In fact, when they're in their little tank and you're walking by, they will actually start bobbing their head. Their chin will turn a different color. And they're basically saying, can you take me out and play with me? The nice thing about the bearded dragon is it's a cool, prehistoric looking animal that doesn't get really prehistorically big. They top out at about a foot. This is a normal size. They don't get much bigger than this. They're very interactive. They're fun to watch eat. And you know what one of the best things about bearded dragons is they sell costumes on Amazon. So you can dress them up. If you don't believe me, check Amazon. We have a Santa outfit for them. We have a scarecrow outfit for them. We can dress them up like a pumpkin. It's amazing. Bearded dragon pets love to have their bearded dragons. They dress them up in little outfits and they walk them on little leashes. They're just wonderful. And they love it. They come running up to you. They love their head. They want your attention. They love to just sit out in a chair in the sun and sunbathe. The sun is good for their skin. They love it. They enjoy it. They're not like a lot of lizards that run away from you because they want to get away. No, they want to be around you. Excellent time. Doesn't get real big. They're an herbivore or an omnivore, so they eat lettuce, a little bit of salad, mealworms, crickets, kind of not so much with the crickets, they're fat. They don't have fat. So, but yeah, mealworms, superworms, they sell all those kind of things. It doesn't cost as much as rats, bunnies, and chickens. They're a lot more enjoyable and playful and happy. I've never heard anybody complain about their bearded dragon. They're very nice.
And how long do they live?
I want to say about 8 to 10 years, somewhere around 12 years. Yeah. Again, it's hard for me to remember the lifespans of everything that I've had and run into because I've had a few different reptiles and snakes. But yeah, very enjoyable. If you've ever watched wildlife videos, they're the ones that shuffle up into the sand and they walk on 2 feet at a time in the sand. But they're very nice. Desert areas, love the sun. So their terrarium usually have sand in a little hide box. A hide box is necessary, okay? Especially with the females. They need a place to lay their eggs. If they don't have a place to hide and lay their eggs, they can become egg bound. So just a terrarium that's empty and blank with just sand and a little tree, not so good. They need a little privacy every once in a while. So that would be a health tip if you had one. But very enjoyable, good with kids, playful. If you don't believe me that they are wonderful, playful animals, you can go on YouTube. I always tell people, if you want to know how playful animals can be, go on YouTube. You will see tortoises playing ball in the courtyard. You will see bearded dragons running around the living room playing with dogs and cats and toys, okay? How is this possible? Again, the owner taking the time to play with their animals. A lot of people don't believe that a tortoise can be a good pet. Well, Oh, I pick it up out of the terrarium and it's squirming. Why is it squirming? It's not used to it. But if you take it out every day, play games with it, play ball with it, what do you have? You have a YouTube video where your animals playing ball in the court, or playing with a pet or doing something crazy. They can be very active. How does this happen? Time, attention, care, respect. You want to know animal psychology? Just think about what makes you happy. The same thing's going to make her happy. What is at the base of all of it? Love, care, attention, respect. With it, you're happy. How do I explain it to kids? When you have a sleepover, your best friend stays over, you're staying up late, you're eating popcorn and food that's not good for you, you're staying up behind, past your bedtime, you're having a good time, you're happy, right? If you go to school the next day and your best friend ignores you, doesn't pay attention to you, and acts like you don't exist, how do you feel? Not really happy. Why would animals be any different? Okay? Needs are basic. All the things that we feel, they feel at a very level. These are the basis, the very base of our emotional. People just happen to complicate it. But let's face it, if you don't get love, care, attention, respect, you're not happy, and you probably won't put up with it for very long. Good pets have good owners.
Actually, some people that.
Yeah, she's going great, she's throwing everything on the floor.
Snakes.
Your snake is not eating.
Do you want to hold it? Do you want to hold it? I can trust you.
At least they're not fast.
Because I only have so many hands, and I only have that people today now. And that one I don't have to worry about. Because he just loves to eat. Oh, and I got to pick her up again. The snake is running around.
Yeah.
All right, so, anybody else have any questions over that? Let me speak on something that I can or cannot answer. I'm just not going to lie to you, that's all I promise. I don't know.
You're talking about your bird, it's very smart.
Yeah,
And I was thought like big birds like that would be very smart.
yeah.
Are all birds, generally speaking, pretty smart?
Pretty smart, you know. I'm not a bird expert, but I know somebody who knows. If you really have a lot of questions about birds, I would recommend the bird guards in Naples. It's out off of, it's actually right on the same street as Forestry Swamp. Knows more about birds than anybody I know, anybody that I've ever met at the zoo or anyplace else. Carrie Ellen is an encyclopedia on birds. Yeah, I would say domestic birds or pet birds are probably different than the wild ones, but probably not that different. I do believe that the smaller birds are probably not as intellect as the larger birds.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be what I would imagine, but I wouldn't pick my word for it. I would find that somebody knows. But yeah, if you've never been to bird guns in Naples for love birds, that's the place to go. Yes.
Another question.
Yes.
Grandson's coming here. Where do you take him?
Oh, you take them to the Kowiachobee Animal Preserve. The only thing is you have to make an appointment ahead of time. We are trying to make it easier. We have taken appointments by phone. We've also taken them by Messenger and Facebook. But we have an automated system that's going up very soon where you can actually do it online through a program.
Okay.
And
it's appropriate, it's not going to be scary for a 10-year-old?
No, it's very age appropriate. Like if there's 2-year-olds, I will talk to them like 2-year-olds.
Wonderful.
I've gone to preschools. I try to make it, it's a little difficult with homeschools because you have some kids that are like kindergarten and some that are in high school, so you kind of speak. What I generally do, I've done this, again, I've been doing this 24 years. I can feel people out search the group. It's a little difficult when you have mixed ages, but we try to make everything very age appropriate. Nothing scary. We don't try to scare anybody. But again, our basic goal is to help people understand and also think. And I encourage kids to be the answer. to create the future, to fix all the mistakes that we made. But you have to give them that encouragement. It's like, how are you gonna get the kids to fix what we messed up? You gotta teach them a different way, because if we just keep going on the same path.
And his parents don't want any pets in the house.
Yeah. But what I encourage most is thinking, and never taking an agenda from somebody. We get fed too much. You just need to seek out a little bit more knowledge. What I try to do is really encourage kids to want to learn, but not give them the shortcuts. Wikipedia, Google, horse encyclopedia to learn about horses. I always tell kids that most of what I know about horses is from a horse encyclopedia. You know, I've learned after 24 years of taking care of horses, how to pick up poop. I can tell you 20 different ways to pick up poop by having horses. But I learned a lot just from a couple hours of a horse encyclopedia and reading about that. So it's a great way to learn about genetics. So. Anybody else? Oh, I was born in Oakland, Illinois, first community. Yeah, when I was 6, we moved to the northwest side. I grew up in Roselle, Park High School. After high school, I went to but yeah, that's the area.
So it was outside.
Yeah, it's outside. Yeah, definitely a south side. So if you're from Chicago, if you're south side, you're south, because you're north side, you're south.
And
Yes.
And Cubs.
Oh, you're Cubs, you're north side.
Right.
But we only have one football team, so it's all good. We love the Hawks. Everybody has to go and attend it.
How do you feel about smaller birds as pets, like parakeets, cockatoos, finches, lovebirds?
They all have personalities. I say find something that fits you, but you're going to get what you put into it, Most people that have parakeets that actually can say a couple of words, they can be very interactive. But there again, if you just have it in a cage and look at it, that's what you're going to have, something in a cage and you look at it. You interact with it, play with it, spend time with it, it's going to, I've seen people find parakeets in the wild and they'll climb up on their finger. That's the one I'm kind of questioning. It's like he lost his home. Because it climbs on somebody's finger, somebody worked with them and has gained his trust, but that only happens from what you do. But again, the responsibility is not letting it get away. Monk parakeets, which are also known as Quaker parrots, have become a very, very big problem in the wild. They even learn to migrate with the wild birds. You have 50 blackbirds on a wire, a high wire. That's one thing. You get something that's twice as heavy, then the wire starts falling. That's not only disrupts nature, but our electric. I think everything could have consequences. Anybody else? Question, curiosity?
The animals that you have out there, primarily, where are they from? How do you acquire them?
They all have their own stories. Because I'm not a rescue, that was never one of my requirements that I've rescued. I've given new homes. They all have their own circumstances. I've rescued cats. I've had cats given to me. I've adopted cats. I haven't really purchased an animal in several years because for 30 years, like somebody bought us a zebra. But they all have their own story. I don't like the word rescue to begin with because it's vague, the definition. Because as soon as you say rescue, everybody's like, oh, the worst story you could think of, abuse, a lot of times just giving an animal a home, even buying an animal can be a rescue. There was a local rescue organization that only rescued this, and somebody and so you buy a pet store. The definition of rescue is only would have ended up with me anyway, because they've lost faith in humanity. It just would have ended up with me anyway, because it would just, somebody would have bought us and we took care of it, and I would have ended up taking it anyway. That's what I mean. It's kind of like, that's where people are at now, is they just, that's why they don't like exotics being sold in the store, because they're just like, it's destined for a rescue because somebody's getting into something they shouldn't be getting into. My zebra was purchased from a game farm. A lot of people do that. A lot of people would still call it a rescue. Why? Oh, well, because the game farm breeds them and sells them. They don't care who they sell them to. It could have ended up at a canned hunting facility. So I bought it so it wouldn't be canned hunted. You know what I mean? Is it a rescue or isn't it? I tell people the story. A lot of people insist that I rescued it because it was impossible for it to go to a canned hunting facility. Was it likely, or the percentages, like maybe 99.9% chance against it? You know what I mean? But the reality is, yeah, it could have ended up at canned hunting facility. So yeah, I don't like using it. I just like giving the stories. You know, I have white tigers that were used as photo cubs. You can only do that for about months. 5 months, they need a home. So now they're with me. So, and that's how a lot of people that do what I do get their animals. They get ones that are no longer being used somewhere else. I have one that was, Sabina, my baby, the most, you guys want to see the prettiest tiger on the planet, Sabina. You got a picture of her when she was a baby. Sabina was given to me by somebody who couldn't find a home for her. She actually offered me two. She wanted me to take the program. I couldn't take two, and I couldn't put them together because I wasn't breeding tigers at the time, and sure as heck wasn't going to breed a brother and sister. So Sabina came with me, her brother stayed where he was. But yeah, these, they all have their own stories and they're all different. 7 cats that I rescued in 2005 were at a facility that was being shut down by the government. They had history with them, so I moved them all. Probably the biggest project I ever had was moving 7 cats in 40 days. So, all different stories. Potbelly pigs, there's probably a dozen different stories. Don't have them anymore because probably Karen doesn't want me to have them. So, potbelly pigs are probably the #1 rescued animal. People get them as pets. They're wonderful pets. They get big, they don't want them. They don't know what miniature actually means.
What do you do with the big cats when hurricanes come? I've been up to the preserve. I know you have a lot of big animals and cats. What do you do when the hurricanes are coming?
First of all, I build to withstand. None of my hurricanes, and actually Florida wildlife regulations will actually have regulations with hurricanes in mind, the way they're built. So yeah, they are constructed in a way. Not only that, but the shelters that I built for my big cats are hurricane proof. They've already died outside. Some of my smaller animals, again, hurricane proof enclosures. My smaller animals I do not leave out there in the storm. I bring them in, but their home is still out there when I'm done. That's one of the cool things I have out there. There's several little geodesic films. Thank you, Discovery Channel, for educating me on how they can withstand 145, 150, 165 mile-an-hour winds. So I built a few geodesic films, and that's the home for some of my animals, like my lemurs. They like to sleep up in the air, so we can't lose them out there in the storm. But no, we keep that in mind. And actually, I'd like to have some pictures, but the barn I built in 2001, first thing I built, still standing since 2001, direct hit from Irma, direct hit from Ian, direct hit from Wilma years ago, lots of direct hits, went through a lot of parents, still standing, still very sound. So we have a lot of hurricane straps and other things. Depends on the animal what we do. But yeah, I invite y'all to come out and see the place. So just again, scratching the surface of what's here. The only thing I promise you is don't know everything. I don't have any degrees. What I know, I've learned from doing what I do. And believe it or not, I learned how to describe things just to answer questions, because you always get questions. So what happens is when people ask me questions I can't answer, I look them up so I can answer them the next one. So yeah, don't know everything, but what I do know is, one thing I promise you is I won't lie to you just to make all that I don't know it. I don't feel like I have to have the answer.
Is your funding primarily from donations?
Yes, it is. All my donation mostly. We depend on everything. We do have local businesses. We do have people that support us monthly. I have a couple of people that they give right out of their retirement funds or 401ks. They give them, a lot of people have companies that will match their giving in their retirement fund. So you get a lot of people that tie it into their benefits because they get more benefits from companies. So yeah, I have a couple that regular check, and it increases every couple of years because they keep doing better, but it comes right out of their retirement fund. They get their little tax write-off, and one couple I'm thinking of that religiously sent us a check every month for probably 8 years now. So yeah, those little bits, people stuff, we do get business like right now, the barn is being sponsored by businesses. There's a home builder, FCI Homes, that is donated the wood and material. There's a guy starting out a construction business that is giving us a breakdown of price for labor. Superior Propane has been helping us financially, what do we do for them? We tell everybody that they are wonderful people that care and help out with money and put up their posters and banners on our property so people can see who's out there supporting us. Grants sometimes. There are grants that we've gotten from people that raise money, specifically to give money, like Transfer Trust. I mentioned the packaging company. They have a convention here every year, and they always look for an animal place to give a donation to. So some of it comes from that. Sometimes we write grants, but it's the people that just come out and support us by taking a tour, and comes from a lot of different places. GoFundMe on Facebook. There's a lot. Birthday fundraisers. How many times we get? Everybody just did a birthday fundraiser. Those work out really good. It doesn't come from one place. It comes from a lot of different places. Income streams from multiple places. No one thing makes or breaks us. But it's all participation. The one thing I do tell people ask how much I need. It's only relevant to how much you want me to accomplish. Obviously, the more money that comes in, the more I can do. The more animals I can take care of, but more importantly, the more people I can teach, the wider the range. Even doing things online like we're trying to do, creating social media content, creating a podcast or episodes and putting the word out there. Production costs money, everything costs money. You can put stuff out there, it all costs money. So how much we need is only relevant to how much you want us to accomplish. But the way I teach it to children is we all play a part, okay? To give you the simple visual, okay? There are 8 billion people on this planet. If 8 billion people each put one bottle in the ocean, how many bottles are in the ocean? Just one bottle, 8 billion bottles. So let's take just half of that, 4 billion people. The 4 billion people did not put a bottle in the ocean, but also picked up one bottle. How many bottles do you have in the ocean? 0, you neutralized it. The problem really is that we can't get even 0.1% of the people to never put a bottle in the ocean or in the environment. We always walk around, well, it's just one. It's just this one time. Yeah, but if everybody does that, that's 8 billion times. And if you do it more than once, that doubles, it triples. So what's the answer? It's we each do our part. not complaining that somebody else doesn't do it. Look, if you can't do the work of the many, did you pick up 8 billion bottles in your lifetime? No, but you can map with your own. Okay, so what is it? What do I teach kids? I teach kids that we create the world around us the way we want it to be and the way we think it should be. By putting into it what we think should be and not putting into it what we think should be. By creating the world around us the way we want it. Power starts with the individual. The answer starts with the individual. It's a very simple message, right? The idea is change starts with you. The answer starts with you. We can go around telling everybody else what to do, but if we really want change, we got to start with ourselves. So the main idea is empowering children to understand that very simple little message with a very simple man, with a very big number. Okay? Thank you, John.